this when I opened up YouTube after I finished work today. And I think this is considering what we've been hearing about this about this issue, I think this may be some good news. Hirohe put out a video about the whole thing with the payment processors, and I got to turn
Cheer
those off.
100 saw earlier that even Made Mint is being affected by the V-Shoujo collapse, as they were handling her merch.
Well, I think Andrea, a lot of people are. That's gonna happen to a lot of people that were sold V-Shoujo, is because they were doing a lot of merch handling. They're all gonna have to figure that out, but they'll get it worked out. No, this is about the Leo, talk to the guys in Discord. It is long and involved. I've already gone over it. Talk to the guys in Discord. They'll explain it to you. But this is about Visa and MasterCard. Remember we were talking with Collective Shout using Visa and MasterCard to go after Steam. It looks like Japan may have just brought the hammer down on groups like Collective Shout and payment processors to this might be the first steps in them not being able to pull this kind of shit again. So I'm hoping this is good news in regards to this. We need that. After what we saw yesterday, we need this kind of good news. So I want to hear about this. So let's do it.
So we've recently been talking a lot about payment processors and this Australian feminist organization, Collective Shout, going after Steam, trying to enact policies that censor certain material on the platform. And now Japan is seeing what's going on, and they're fighting back against these payment processors. There is an update from just today about that, breaking news, if you will.
Nice.
But what we have here on screen is actually not breaking news. This is a post, a tweet from the legendary politician and legendary mangaka Ken Akamatsu, who you may recall last year, basically 13 months ago.
Holy crap, that's a big post.
Was calling out this exact same thing. We'll read this and then get to the new stuff. He said, "We've received many questions regarding Manga Library Z being asked by an international credit card company to stop distributing works that contain certain words. There have been many notices to ebook stores in the past, but this time I feel that it is the largest one yet. Regarding the policies of these private companies, credit cards, politicians should avoid casually saying on the internet that there's a possibility that it may violate certain laws, as it puts pressure on the private sector. However..."
Yeah, I mean, and he's right. He's right about that, because if a public government figure says something about a private company that says, "Oh, this might violate the law," that's going to give these special interest groups like Collective Shout it's going to give them the green light to go to companies like the credit card processor and say, "Look, even it's going to give them ammo to tell Visa and MasterCard, look, even the governments are saying this might violate the laws. You should take action because you want to be on the right side of the law. Don't you? Don't you? Don't you?" And then the credit card companies, for whatever reason, listening to these worrying fucking harpies, will go, "Oh yeah, okay, well, you guys got to do that because the harpy screeching in my ear told me that you're violating the law. So you better stop that." Yeah, it's one feeds into the other. That's the thing. If you were a public figure and you say something publicly, even if it's not government, if you are just a public figure that has a lot of ears listening to you, this is actually kind of basic. You do need to exercise some caution in what you say publicly, because it's not only in the court systems where what you say can and will be used against you. So that's something. He's not wrong about that. And the government officials for a very long time have been pretty bad about opening their mouths and talking about something before they get the facts. So his example here of saying, his example of saying that, there's a possibility that may have violated certain laws. This doesn't only include this situation in total. This also includes, literally talk about any kind of violation of law, because the minute you do that, the minute any politician makes the suggestion of, oh, this person or this company may have violated the law, you're going to have the populace in general, because we are living in such a polarized society these days, everybody's going to start screaming. If you say they may have violated the law, people will start screaming at you, well, send the police after them, send the troops in, go get them. And they're not going to appreciate the context of someone may have violated the law. It needs to be investigated. We need to see if anything is done. A politician saying they may have violated the law, in the eyes of many of the public masses these days, is the same as they are guilty of committing a crime. Because nobody knows how to basically think in moderation or think logically. They're only thinking off of pure emotion, and that's how they will respond. So honestly, this advice right here is good for everybody in this day and age. That's why, and yes, I'm bringing this back to this, even though I've already talked about this. No, I'm not going to delve further into it. When I was talking about Mousie's announcement yesterday, that's why I made it very clear that we don't know everything. Mousie made a statement, but there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and we need to stop. We need to wait and let the process take its course before we start really going crazy about it. Same rules apply here with any government official talking about a company that says they may have violated the law. Anytime there's something legal happening, there's always a shitload happening behind the scenes that you or I, as private citizens, are not seeing. There is a great deal of investigations that happen that we don't see and we will not know about, because doing so could damage the case in question that's being worked on. So I'm going off on a tangent here, but this is not something that should apply only to credit card companies. It should apply to anything whenever a public figure says someone may have violated the law. And Cosmic, thank you for the follow. And Kick and Snugs, thank you for the follow on Twitch.
I think that in the future, this will become a problem for the general regulation of expression in Japanese culture. And wow, has that aged accurately. And he says, so some kind of response will be necessary. This is because, in fact, this time unprecedented strong conditions and strong penalties have been confirmed. And if these are left unchecked, excuse me, I lost my spot. Okay, there we go. If these are left unchecked, it is expected that they will gradually spread to other expressions. If that happens, it will become a problem, not only for the publishing industry, but for the entire Japanese content industry. First of all, we will start by investigating the situation of other stores and compiling information. We apologize for moving slowly compared to international brands, but as this is a serious issue, we will proceed carefully. There, of course, was also a few other occurrences between then and now over the last year or so regarding censorship and payment processors and Japan fighting back against them, but I'm not trying to do a full...
And I talked about this too. What we saw happening with Visa and MasterCard threatening Steam and threatening to take away their payment processing capabilities, this is not new. This has been happening for some time. It's just not public. We don't see it as publicly. That's why I said I think this happened with sites like DeviantArt and Patreon. I have a suspicion that either the credit card companies themselves or the credit card companies influence, like special interest groups like Collective Shout, talk to credit card companies into going after these sites and saying, you need to get rid of this or we're not going to facilitate payment processing for your company anymore. And you can I would wager you can ascribe a lot of these, and Pixiv. Yeah, Pixiv is full of that, and that's why I know there are some artists that did move to Pixiv because of what happened. There was one particular artist, I forget the name of the artist, but the artist who does the Sunstone graphic novel, he used to actually post his great graphic novel, by the way, for Sunstone. If you guys like good art, great storytelling with a very heavy BDSM theme, absolutely check out Sunstone. They're a fantastic collection of graphic novels. He used to post his stuff on DeviantArt, and then DeviantArt changed the rules in terms of what can be posted. And so he basically bailed out and is posting all of this stuff on Pixit. Although I think he's starting to post back on DeviantArt again. But it's probably because DeviantArt got pressure from the payment processors. Same thing with Patreon. Patreon said a lot of stuff could not be posted on Patreon anymore, probably because the payment processors got to them and said, we don't want you doing this stuff, so we will remove your ability to receive payments if you don't put up a rule banning this stuff. And so that's just 2 examples. Only 2. And my guess is they have been, like, the Visa and MasterCard, the payment process, and possibly PayPal itself, have been probably doing this to multiple sites, multiple companies that we haven't even heard from. It's been so under the radar, we haven't heard from it. So this has been good. I think this has probably been happening for several years now, and we just don't know about it.
Full recap on stuff I've covered regarding this issue over the last year or so.
Oh, and Stars Gecko, thank you for the follow.
As we move into the current news from today from Yahoo JP. The headline reading, Visa is administratively punished for violating antitrust laws, and the Japan Fair Trade Commission applies the confirmation procedure. On the 22nd, that being today, the Fair Trade Commission applied administrative sanctions and confirmation procedures to Visa worldwide. So being hit with those sanctions. According to the Japan Fair Trade Commission, this is the first time that an international credit card brand has been administratively punished, including Visa, which is the largest in the industry and boasts the largest market share in Japan. They then talk about the prior situation that we briefly aforementioned, hyperlinking to an article about that and saying in 2024, the Japan Fair Trade Commission will conduct an on-site inspections of Visa. This, of course, is a little bit of an error in the auto-translate, as that has already happened. They then go on to recap some more stuff, but the main takeaway here is that, yeah, on today, the 22nd, it sounds like
there it is.
Japan's Fair Trade Commission is applying sanctions on Visa. I'm not sure if they're going after any other payment processors. This may just be the start. Back over on Twitter, we can see this being discussed in this tweet with over 3,200 likes already from also today.
And what did I say? Granted, I was off by saying that it was going to be the EU that did this. Japan smacked them first. But what did I say? It was probably not going to be the US that spearheads, shutting down these, draconian rules that payment processors are making against sites. It wasn't the EU. I was wrong about the EU. It was Japan. But it was outside of the US that did it because the US was dragging their feet on it.
By Ohio My Brother, saying breaking the Japan Fair Trade Commission has applied administrative measures under the Anti-Monopoly Act, including the commitment procedure to Visa on suspicion of violating the act. And following up by saying today, for the first time in Japan, an administrative penalty was imposed on an international credit card brand. Do you understand what this means? I sincerely hope that from now on, Japan will thoroughly pursue and address all issues related to credit cards. Responses including, hopefully this will snowball and other countries will jump on this too. A first step in fixing the issue. It affected their country first, so it'd be pretty good if they can address it. Based, which is why I like Discover, kind of that underdog that never quite got its footing down. It's time to abolish the corrupt banking system, and we need regulations against our credit card companies also, so much in the US. Oh, but it doesn't end there. Things are continuing to heat up even further, as I now present to you Zenko Kurishita, Japanese politician. And just 15 hours ago, Kurishita directly acknowledged his collective shout, saying the group Collective Shout, which reportedly put pressure on Steam, is an Australia-based nonprofit activist organization that campaigns against the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls. It seems they have a track record of several cancellation cases, beyond Steam. The following is from Grok, so please take it with caution. So it's interesting that Collective Shout is on the radar of politicians in Japan. We're already, as mentioned, seeing repercussions being applied, penalties being applied to payment processors via the Japanese Fair Trade Commission. And we might see further statements coming out from the likes of Kirishita here and Ken Akamatsu and potentially the otaku politician himself as well, that being, of course, Yamada Taro. And it seems like...
And my hope is because people on social media like Hirohei, like Endymion, like myself, like Kirsche, like the people like us that talk about current events and are basically trying to broadcast the problems we're seeing, the dangers we are seeing with special interest groups like Collective Shout and how they're influencing credit card companies who are wielding way too much fucking power, that maybe that might be able to gain some traction in other, governmental agencies around the world sitting up, taking notice, and starting to take action. In US, in Canada, in East Asia, in EU, in South America, wherever. If we're bringing this, if we're putting a spotlight on this so that people know about it, then maybe people will finally sit up and start paying attention to it and going, oh, we've got this, because it's, especially with some of the things that they're going for, where it's clear that groups like Collective Shout, not only are they overstepping like crazy, let's not forget, Collective Shout is overstepping like fucking crazy and basically saying, you must think like we do, and anything less will not be tolerated, and we will get you shut down if that's the case. But also, leave us not forget that they actually supported the movie Cuties, which sexually exploited young girls. I'm gonna keep bringing that up. The head of Collective Shout supported Cuties, a movie that blatantly exploited young girls in a sexual manner. Never forget, that was the head of Collective Shout. And yeah, Mechanus, your comment got deleted, but it's right at that edge of actually calling it softcore. That it is right at the edge. There was no thank fuck, there was no nudity in it, but there was a blatant sexualization of those young girls. Blatant. With everything throughout that movie. And they supported it. They were cheering it on. They were all for it. Yet they're going to turn around and tell other companies, you must be ended because you are exploiting girls and exploiting women. But they support Cuties. That needs to be shouted from the goddamn rooftops. Okay, something like that needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Zeb, they're trying to claim that. The problem is what they're doing is some of the stuff that they did in that movie doesn't basically paints oh look, the industry is over sexualizing young girls, because they were celebrating it. And at some points in the movie, the girls, not under the influence of the industry, the girls were doing some heinous shit. To give one example, there's a scene where one of these girls wants to blackmail a guy. If I'm remembering the story, I didn't see it, so I'm here. So I heard about this after the fact in reviews of the movie, because I am not subjecting my eyeballs to that movie. A girl wants to blackmail an older boy, and the way she does this is she takes his phone and basically shoves it down her shorts and takes a picture of her genitalia and basically threatens to expose him for having images of her private parts on his phone unless he does what she says. And that's not under the auspice of the industry making her do that. She did this on her own. So it's shit like that that's just absolutely fucking disgusting. Or was it her stepfather? Okay, thank you, Grandma. She was doing it to blackmail her stepfather. It was freaking disgusting. And Collective Shout is applauding that, but they want to take down the game Detroit Become Human because they claim it's exploitative to women and young girls. It has exploitative violence against women and young girls, when the entire point of the scenes that I think they're talking about, I'm pretty sure, is you as the player are supposed to feel horrified and want to stop it. Not that you are, quote, enjoying it in any way. So it's they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, and again, they're doing do as I say, not as I do. You must do as we say, or we will cancel you, and use the credit card companies to do it. It's fucked up the way the people in Collective South think. They are psychopathic activists.
Like, this attention is really the last thing that Collective Shout would want. They're probably quite afraid of this continuing to blow up and backfire even more, because they seem to already be getting very nervous. Tweet reading from Pirate Nation. Looks like Collective Shout or a follower seeks to close the petition to stop payment processors and activist groups, citing defamation. And so, yeah, it seems like there is a petition going around to, well, as they say, tell MasterCard, Visa, and activist groups stop controlling what we can watch, read, or play. And yeah, it looks like the petition hosted on change.org has received a defamation claim. Someone or some people, maybe an organization, is really desperately trying to get this petition taken down. It seems like the organizer of the petition got this message from change.org, presumably, and it reads, "Hi there. We're writing to let you know that we received a claim alleging that content in your petition update here is defamatory. Change.org is an open platform, and we care deeply about free speech and empowering our users to create the change they want to see. However, when you use change.org, you agree to our terms of service and community guidelines. And this includes agreeing not to defame others. This means you cannot make untrue statements about another person or organization which harm their reputation. In order to allow..."
So Collective Shout is they're trying to silence their detractors. This is fucking this is dictatorship bullshit. This is I would dare say we're starting to tread into fascism. That because someone set up a petition to basically stop Collective Shout from basically pulling their bullshit and basically trying to put their boot on the scale of everything because they don't like it. When someone pushes back, they're going to try and say, "Oh, you're defaming us." And the problem is change.org is not going... Here's the problem I have. Why is change.org coming at this petition saying you have to prove substantive evidence of the allegedly defamatory statements? Why does change.org not say to Collective Shout, when Collective Shout approaches them and says, "These people are defaming me," why doesn't change.org say to them, "Okay, prove it"? Why is it incumbent upon the person that put up the petition to provide the evidence? Why does why does Collective Shout not have to be the one to provide evidence? That's my fucking question. Why? Seriously, this is guilty until proven innocent. This is basically telling this is kind of tantamount to the victim blaming. And it's legal. If they're like lobbying against change.org like this and demanding proof because they read in change.org's ear, I'm sorry, we're at the point that legal action may need to start taking place of some sort. I don't know. I don't know what kind of legal action, could be taken against Collective Shout for the actions that they're taking of trying to silence people. There has to be something. There has to be something that can be done from a legal standpoint to basically stop them from basically trying to shut down every single person that is trying to push back against them.
To continue hosting your petition update, please provide proof or substantiation of any allegedly defamatory statements within 3 business days of this communication. They go on to make a few disclaimers and ultimately thank the user for using change.org, saying if you have any questions, let us know. Taking a look at some of the responses to this one, we can see they should just share Collective Shout's tweets and own website as proof it's not defamatory in the slightest.
Like, okay, I didn't notice, but what is the change? Hang on. what is the change.org petition in the first place? What is in, let's see. Yeah, it just says, tell MasterCard, Visa, and activist groups stop controlling what we watch or read. I'd love to know what was actually in the petition that they are trying to claim are defamatory. Does anyone, okay, I'm going to jump off this for a second. Let me try and find.
Here's the scary part. What if it isn't Collective Shout who sent the defamation claim, but Visa or MasterCard?
Hang on a second. What is it? Tell MasterCard. Okay. Here we go. Okay, what is the... Okay, tell MasterCard, Visa, and activist groups stop controlling what we can watch, read, or play. The issue. Visa and MasterCard are interfering with legal entertainment, often under pressure from advocacy groups like Collective Shout. We demand an end to the censorship of fiction and the right to choose the stories we enjoy without more policing. Increase their financial control to pressure platforms and censoring legal fictional content. Entire genres of books, games, films, artwork being demonetized or deplatformed, not because they're legal, but because they offend the personal values of executives or activist groups. This behavior is not just overreach, it's blatant hypocrisy. I'd say it takes it even a step further than that. These are the same process are allowing platforms like OnlyFans to operate with minimal oversight despite multiple credible reports and lawsuits alleging the presence of real sexual abuse content involving real-life minors. That is a criminal failure responsibility, yet when it comes to entirely fictional depictions, these are the same companies act swiftly, shutting down creators, restricting access, and acting as global censors. Pressure to do this is often fueled by advocacy groups like Collective Shout, feminist organization, does not speak for everybody. Okay. Before, yeah. Where is this defamatory? Seriously, where in this is there anything defamatory? I see absolutely nothing defamatory in anything contained within this petition. Absolutely nothing. So how in the hell is change.org going to say your someone has come to us and said your petition is defamatory and you need to prove us evidence the otherwise? There's absolutely zero defamation contained in those words. Absolutely none. So honestly, at this point, we're looking at freedom of speech. I think that would be the legal route to go with in terms of stopping Collective Shout with this. That, or whomever, if it was Collective Shout, Visa or one of the payment processors that basically facilitated a complaint to change.org, it feels like a freedom of speech issue. That they are, but that. And this could be also aimed at change.org. So it would be the lawsuit could be filed against both change.org and whomever facilitated the complaint of defamation against change.org. This would be a First Amendment violation. And I think that's the way to go on this one in terms of stopping this bullshit of people trying to literally silence people and literally take away their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech.
They should just share Collective Shout's tweets and own website as proof it's not defamatory in the slightest. They can't compete in a market for free ideas, which is why they always try to silence the opposition. They truly cannot stand any pushback whatsoever, to the point of actively silencing petitions and critical articles.
And to that point, the fact that they can't stand any pushback whatsoever means that their position is shaky at best. That means that if anybody was to look at their position critically, it would fall apart. So to try and prevent anybody from looking at their position critically, they are basically going full bore on attack and trying to silence anybody that pulls out a magnifying glass to look at their position and to look at their past. They're broadcasting that they don't have a stable position to stand on, and that their more righteousness is a house of glass that could or a house of cards that could come down at the slightest breeze. And they're desperately trying to stop that breeze by any means necessary.
Holy clown show. Visa will be a king. Complaint probably filed by Visa. And yeah, it's just some more BS by them. Probably paid to do it. Well, obviously, the next thing now we need to do is hop over to change.org and take a look at the petition itself. Let's see.
He did bring it up.
What's
Okay.
So terrified.
I did extra work.
The issue. MasterCard and Visa are interfering with legal entertainment, often under pressure from advocacy groups like Collective Shout. We demand an end to this censorship of fiction and the right to choose the stories we enjoy without moral policing. Well, seems pretty dang reasonable so far. MasterCard and Visa have increasingly used their financial control to pressure platforms into censoring illegal fictional content. Entire genres of books, games, films, and artwork are being demonetized or deplatformed, not because they're illegal, but because they offend the personal values of executives or activist groups.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like we know a few English voice actors and English localizers that would get along great with Collective Shout, but I digress. Continue.
Who's to say that these voice actors he's referencing are not already a part of Collective Shout? We only know about the head peoples in Collective Shout. We don't know who their members are. Just remember that. We have no idea who actually is a part of, who is donating to Collective Shout and supporting them. We don't know that.
Continuing. This behavior is not just overreach, it's blatant hypocrisy. These same payment processors allowed platforms like OnlyFans to operate with minimal oversight, despite multiple credible reports and lawsuits alleging the presence of real SA content involving real-life minors. That is a criminal failure of responsibility. Yet when it comes to entirely fictional depictions, these same companies act swiftly, shutting down.
And the answer for that is very simple. OF makes these companies goat loads of fucking money in credit card processing fees. That's why they turn the blind eye to OF. Let us not fuck with this. There's no moral high ground here to be standing upon. This is pure financial greed. The credit card companies ignore OF, and they go with these video games or manga / hentai / doujin, whatever you want to call it, given the genre. They go after them because they're small potatoes. They don't make them any money. So when you have groups like Collective Shout going, get them, they're terrible people, look at what they're doing, Visa and MasterCard go, they're not making the same fucking money anyway. All right, we'll do it. Whereas OF is making them a shit ton of money on a daily basis in processing fees. This is all about money, because let us not forget, companies that have financial stakes do not give a flying fuck about activism. They don't give a shit about issues. They don't give a shit about anything Collective Shout gets so pissy about. They do not fucking care. What they care about is money. That is the driving factor for the entire business. Nothing else. So that's why they're going after the gaming industry and why they're going after like hentai comics. Because they're small potatoes and they're not getting much money from them anyway, so shutting them down is not going to hurt their bottom line. Shutting down OF for the exact same reasons, they would lose a fuck ton of money. And so they'll never do it because they want those dollar bills, y'all.
Creators, restricting access, and acting as global censors. The pressure to do this is often fueled by advocacy groups like Collective Shout, a feminist organization that routinely campaigns against adult-oriented content, even when it's fictional, legal, and clearly labeled for mature audiences. Let's be clear.
Raven, I will put the link in the chat afterwards.
Adults are capable of choosing what they want to watch, read, or play. If someone doesn't like a certain type of entertainment, the solution is simple. Walk away. Nobody is forced to engage with content they find offensive, but they have no right to dictate what others are allowed to enjoy, especially when it's within the bounds of the law. Fiction.
Exactly right. By doing this, by claiming you have the right to dictate what others are allowed to enjoy, that is tantamount to accusing someone of wrongthink, and that's what 1984 was about, which is a cautionary tale of overreach. Granted, this is not governmental, but it's delving into it. It's basically a single small group trying to enforce their will, their agenda, and their creed on the general populace, saying you must obey to the way that we, the small group of individuals, think, versus the general populace. You will think like we do, or we will hurt you. And so far, they've had some success with the payment processors and the banks. Yeah, this is flat out fascism. It is straight out of Orson Welles. And it needs to be stopped right the fuck yesterday.
Fiction is not reality. Sex sells, and consent, artistic expression, and market freedom must be respected in any healthy democratic society. We demand that MasterCard, Visa, and their pressure partners, 1. Stop censoring illegal fictional content that complies with the law and platform standards. 2. Reject influence from activist groups that promote moral panic or misrepresent fiction as harm. 3. Be fully transparent about content restrictions and the rationale behind them. 4. Protect creators' rights to make legal adult content and ensure a fair appeals process for any penalized media. Let creators create. Let consumers choose. Payment processors and activist groups should not be cultural gatekeepers in a digital age. Sign this petition to defend free expression, consumer choice, and...
Only? Yes. Yes, it is. That's why I said the legal tact to take, at least with my limited knowledge in terms of civil law. The legal tact to take right now, from what I'm seeing with what the payment processors and collective shout are doing, at least in regards to this change.org petition, is to file a violation of the First Amendment suit. Right now, that was the first thing that pops in my head is for someone or a group to file a First Amendment lawsuit against change.org, Collective Shout, and Visa and MasterCard, whomever is trying to silence them on change.org.
Gatekeepers in a digital age. Sign this petition to defend free expression, consumer choice, and artistic integrity. Once again, the petition can be found on change.org. Tell MasterCard, Visa activist groups stop controlling what we can watch, read, or play. Assuming it doesn't actually get taken down over that whole defamation nonsense. At least in my opinion, it seems to be nonsense. I don't know what they could possibly be going after here in this petition. Seems pretty accurate and reasonable, at least. Yeah,
and that's why I'm saying it's a First Amendment violation. There's absolutely nothing defamatory anywhere in this petition. In this petition. The fact that change.org is saying, we got a complaint of defamation, you have to prove that it's not, instead of change.org saying to the complainant, you want to claim this is defamation, prove to us that there's defamation contained within this change.org. But no, they're not saying that the accuser has to prove their case. They're saying the victim has to prove they're innocent. Basically reversing the entire concept of get innocent until proven guilty.
In my opinion. So yeah, it's not looking good for Collective Shout. This feels like a variant of the Streisand effect. Obviously, it's not like the exact same thing, but you can see kind of like the similarities, right? They're like trying to take things down and censor them. They brag about it, and now it's all backfiring. So I don't know, what's the word for that? Is it like
okay, so to your statement about First Amendment does not apply to private corporations, the argument could be made. The argument could be challenged in court. I don't know if anybody has attempted to do this or not, but corporations have been granted, effectively speaking, personhood in the courts. Okay? When it comes to corporations, they have claimed personhood for, I forget the particular case, but I believe it's been done in the courts about corporations basically having personhood. So in that instance, you could theoretically make a case of First Amendment. theoretically. Now, how possible it is, I don't know. I don't know. I'm throwing, like, again, I'm not a legal scholar in civil law. I'm throwing out ideas. I'm simply throwing out ideas here of something that could be done. Because this does feel like a violation of free, I don't know. I'm frustrated by this because it's literally a small little group and a finance company that is basically saying you do not have freedom of speech. That is what is happening here. It is a small activist group and a finance company that is literally saying we're going to restrict your freedom of speech and freedom of expression. You are not allowed to say these things and and basically be able to sell them. And maybe it's not like freedom of speech, but I don't know. It's like you guys were putting up TOS. I don't know what Change.org's TOS is. In terms of Change can claim TOS violation would be okay. Well, here's the thing. It's not that Change.org would claim violation of TOS. It would have to be the person that it would have to be the person that facilitated the petition to make the claim of violation of TOS. Because Change.org is saying you need to give us proof or we're shutting you down. So it's the people that put up the petition that are basically being victimized here. And if anybody was trying to do a violation of TOS, it would probably be them. Because Change.org is fully on board with whomever made the bullshit complaint. So maybe you could, maybe the people who did the petition could look at a TOS violation. I don't know. It's just all I know is people are trying to push back, and these groups like Change.org and the credit card companies are trying to silence them because they know they can bust through any excuses they've got right now. And how they can fight back, you need to get someone with a legal degree on board. They need to start bringing lawyers into this because they are far more well-versed on the law. Hell, maybe Legal Mindset can do a video on this. I wish Legal Mindset would start doing a video on this to express, because he would be able to far better express where, legally speaking, these people that facilitated this petition, where their options lie. I am simply I am just a simple country anime girl. So I am completely spitballing here, and I'm not trying to profess that I'm a professional in any way, shape, or form on this. I'm a VTuber, and I'm frustrated by what these people are doing, and I just want something done to basically actually push back on these people with some power. That's what I'm wanting here, because what they are doing is completely wrong, and to my eyes, it looks like it's a freedom of, it looks like they're trying to silence people and take away their freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And it needs to be stopped.
Censor them, they brag about it, and now it's all backfiring. So I don't know, what's the word for that? Is it like instant karma or something? Let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you found my coverage to be entertaining, amusing, and or informative, or something positive. And if you did enjoy my coverage, please consider liking and subscribing. Appreciate you. I'll see you in the comments here and in the next one. Have a great day.
Yeah. All right. So first, let me link in the video. Yes, I will link in the Change.org petition into both chats. Okay, so I've got the Change.org petition linked into both chats. If you guys want to tweet out that change.org petition to Legal Mindset and let him know that people are trying to shut it down, or link the video that we just reacted to, please by all means do so. By all means, feel free to tweet that to him, and maybe he will talk about it. Maybe he will say something about it, and he will maybe be able to outline possible defenses that might be capable of dealing with this. One can hope.